Guys, quiet. Guys, I'm putting Rabbi Cohn on the screen. Okay. I'm going to introduce him in just 1 minute. We're almost there. Okay, let's see where you can get a good view.
Okay, we're good. Okay, ready, everybody?
Okay. I'm just going to introduce you for a minute if you don't mind, okay?
We are recording.
Okay.
We are recording.
Wonderful. Okay. It is really a very, very big splooge for us to hear today from Rabbi Joel Cohn. As I mentioned to you guys earlier, Rabbi Cohn was the principal of SR Academy for many, many, many years. He is a tremendous educator, a tremendous Talmid Chacham, and he has lived in Israel for the past.
This is year number 19. This is year number 19.
Year number 19. Okay, I wasn't so far off. And it is a good friend and a tremendous educator, and we really have the salute to hear from him today, to hear a little bit about sort of the history of this conflict and also more of an understanding of what is on the ground. Thank you so much. I'm going to leave the light on so that you can see everybody in the room.
Or best for you. I'm fine. Whatever. It will be some video for sure. Okay, thank you very, very, very much.
I'm going to adjust this
50
as on speaker. Yeah.
Okay, we good?
Yeah, we're good.
50 years ago, I was in Yeshivat Shalavim. I was my Shana Ba'aretz back in 1973 in Yeshivat Shalavim, and I was there on Yom Kippur. And on Yom Kippur, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we heard planes flying overhead. We didn't quite know what it was. Around 10 minutes before the end of Yom Kippur, towards 6 o'clock in the evening, is when we found out that there was a major, major incursion from Egypt and from Syria. And that's how we discovered about the Yom Kippur War. And I spent the Yom Kippur War here in Eretz Yisrael. I told students about it for years upon years, my experiences of Yom Kippur. Never in my lifetime did I think I would experience the same thing again. And here I was in shul on Shabbat morning. Again, there's one day of Chag here, so it's Shabbat, it's Simchat Torah. I went to a shul that starts at 7:30 in the morning. At 8:10, there are sirens. At first, I thought it was a malfunction. What's going on? What's with the sirens? A second siren, a third siren. Somebody comes into shul and says to me, Yoel, Shemata Mashakara? I don't know what you're talking about. And he starts to tell me this thing about an incursion by the south. I thought the guy was delusional. I thought he simply was delusional that he had lost it. I know what he was talking about. Were you all right, Lisa?
Yeah, I'm just putting it so that they see you,
okay,
and not themselves.
Oh, okay. There should be. Okay.
Can you see them?
I see them fine. You were good? Okay. And I come home. My wife is already home. My wife went to another shul that started later, and she's home. I said, what are you doing home? So there, when the siren sounded, they closed shul. They said, everybody go home. This happened to a number of shuls here. And then, as you might have had the experience on Shabbat and Sunday, you sort of like gotten dribs and drabs of information, not really knowing what's going on. And it wasn't until after Shabbat, again, we have one day Chag here. So after Shabbat, we turned on the computer. We started to begin to understand what was happening here. And of course, this counterattack of Israel has been nicknamed Nifsach Chorvot Barzel, the swords of iron. What I want to do in the next 40 minutes or so, 35 minutes or so, is to give you a little bit of historical background about Gaza, and to then explain to you how we, with the emphasis on we, because it's you too, going to win this war. A little bit of historical background on Gaza. First of all, the map, I'm sure you're all familiar with. I'm in Yerushalayim, here in the middle of the country, Gaza in the southwest part of the country. Yerushalayim, I believe, is around 70 miles away from Gaza. Tel Aviv is closer, right up the coast, 50 miles away from Gaza. You know Gaza because you studied it. It's mentioned in Lech Lecha. You studied it in Sefer Shoftim. You have the stories of Shimshon and the Sarnei Plishtim. You have the wars of David HaMelech with the Plishtim, and they are centered in Gaza. The word Gaza, we had it on Yom Kippur many, many times, Azut Mesach. If somebody is is haughty, is chutzpahdik, and that's what Gaza has always been a thorn in the side of the Jewish people. In 19, we're going to start our story here. Let me just see. I just want to get the right thing up because I have the right thing. Here we go. Here we go. In 1949, once Israel signed the armistice agreement with the surrounding Arab armies after the Milchemet Ha'atzmaut, after the War of Independence, you see that the green was the state of Israel. And that's what I grew up with. That was Israel, what it looked like. Gaza was not part of the state of Israel at all. Gaza was a separate territory which was administered by Egypt. The area around Gaza, which we're going to refer to as Otef Gaza, Gaza is referred to as Ritzuat Gaza, the Gaza Strip, Ritzuat Gaza, and the area around is referred to as Otef Gaza. The Otef Gaza is part of Israel from the very beginning. The Yeshuvim there, the Kibbutzim there, have been as part of Israel from the very inception of the state of Israel. In 1949, Gaza is administered by Egypt, but it's its own separate, very, very much its own separate territory. Who lives in Gaza? You did have an indigenous population, people that have always lived there, but that very, very much was changed after the Milchemet Ha'atzmaut, after the War of Independence.
On May 14th, 1948, Israel's provisional government declared an independent Jewish state in line with the UN partition plan. The very next morning, 7 surrounding armies invaded newborn Israel. The remarkable turn of events is still talked about today. Jews successfully repelled the onslaught from the jaws of imminent destruction. But the repercussions of the invasion on both sides were devastating. The chaos of war, along with the scramble to keep civilians safe, resulted in about 700,000 Arab refugees. There is scholarly debate over what exactly happened. Some argue that Arab refugees left out of intense fear of fighting, and some argue that they left on orders from Arab leaders to make way for strategic military operations. It is clear Israelis were directly responsible for the expulsion of tens of thousands of Arabs. It was a wartime decision to ensure Arab armies didn't gain a foothold in areas where some locals had provided Arab fighters a base to launch attacks on Jewish communities since the partition plan was announced 6 months earlier.
So there were 3 types of Arab refugees. One that just left because they felt that they were just too scared. Another group that left because they were told so by the Arab army leaders. They said, listen, again, what Arab refugees means they came from the green area. And they left the green area either because they were scared, either because they were told so by Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, get out so we could just wipe out the Jewish state, then you come back. And then there were those that were deemed a security risk to this new state of Israel who were expelled. Now, many of these refugees, you heard the number 700,000, they got spread out to Lebanon, to Jordan. The vast majority ended up in Gaza. That's the vast majority of the population has its roots of these refugees. Now, what happens to refugees generally is that you take care of them for a couple of years and get them back on their feet. We all know as Jews, after World War II, there were 1 million Jewish refugees across Europe. What happened to the 1 million Jewish refugees? There were different agencies that took care of them. Eventually, they were put back on their feet. They went to the United States, to Australia, to South Africa, and they started their lives anew. And many of you may be great-grandchildren of these refugees. In this situation, a United Nations authority was established called UNRWA, and they built these refugee camps, and this is where these people stayed. They still are in the refugee camps 75 years later. Now it's their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren that live there. United Nations Relief and Welfare Association, UNRWA, still administers to them. They never put themselves up on their feet and started to rebuild their lives. So they just stayed in squalid neighborhoods with very, very little hope for the future. And that gives you a little bit of snapshot of the vast population of Gaza and the people that are there. 1967, Six-Day War. Israel captures the entire Sinai Peninsula and captures Gaza. And Gaza now is under the military rule of Israel. Again, there are, at this point, 1.5 million Arabs that live there, and Israel tries to administer to this particular area. Like the other captured territories, in time, there were Jewish settlements that popped up. There were Jewish settlements, the largest of which was Gush Katif in the southwestern corner. I had occasion to visit Gush Katif in the 1990s. Dugit and Erez up north, Nitzarim in the middle. And these, at its height, there were approximately 9,000 Jews who were living in these various yeshuvim. They started a very successful vegetable business called Gush Katif. It still exists today, even though they are no longer there. We're going to take a little look at what life was like in the yeshuvim of Gaza in the 1990s and early 2000s. What then happened is that the Israeli government in 2005 came to the conclusion that it was just too costly to go ahead and protect these yeshuvim. During the Intifada of the early 2000s, there were many terrorist attacks. People were killed traveling to and from these yeshuvim. It took a tremendous amount of army personnel, tremendous amount of financial commitment to keep these 9,000 Jews safe. And the government decided, and a majority of Israelis agreed, that it was in the best interests of Israel to disengage, to go ahead and to evacuate these 9,000 people, destroy the yeshuvim, and let Gaza be ruled by the Arabs. Let's see, let this be a test case. Can there be a Palestinian state? Can the Arabs go ahead and rule over themselves? The one who is the prime minister that made this decision was Ariel Sharon, who was a great war hero in 1973. This was his announcement.
אני רואה בתוכנית חשיבות רבה למדינת ישראל ואזרחיה. התוכנית תאפשר לנו לשמור על האינטרסים הלאומיים והביטחוניים שלנו ותוציא את ישראל מהקיפאון המדיני המסוכן. אני יודע שזהו צעד לא קל ולא פשוט, אבל כולנו חייבים לגלות מנהיגות ואחריות וביחד להביא תקווה.
That he really felt, and the majority of Israelis felt, that this is going to be ultimately good for Medinat Yisrael. But it did make, the government had to evict 9,000 people from their homes. These are Israelis who live there as part of Eretz Yisrael. One of the most emotional videos is the Banot HaMitparalot, the girls of Gush Katif who got together to daven last day, to daven together in the shul, pleading not to be expelled from their homes.
הן עוברות ברצף מתפילה לתפילה. והנוסח נשמע לי אשכנזי קלאסי מהדור הישן, עם קצת חידושים.
Despite those tefillot, the Israeli army came in and forcibly evicted them from their homes. The idea was that the Arabs would take over. It would be in their best interest to create order there, create a thriving economy. It's not exactly what happened.
Israel had a heavy military presence within Gaza to help control the violence and terrorist activities when possible, and about 9,000 Israelis were living in a collection of small settlements within the region. Israel decided to officially withdraw by the end of 2005, removing all Israeli citizens and military presence from Gaza and essentially giving control of the area to the Palestinian government. Now, this was a major operation with tons of backlash among Israeli citizens and thousands of people displaced from their homes. But Israel did it, at least in part, because they hoped giving the Palestinians control over the land would help end the violence. As we'll see though, that didn't really happen. After Israel's full withdrawal, Palestinians held elections in 2006 for the government that controlled both Gaza and the larger West Bank area. And they elected Hamas. Yes, there was at least one other major party on the ballot, Fatah, which had been in control since the first general election a decade earlier. And no, the 2006 election wasn't rigged. The voters chose Hamas, an organization that was incredibly public about its desire to kill Jews and destroy anything connected to the Zionist enemy.
So Hamas takes over the government in 2007. They have control over Gaza. And very soon after, they get into the rocket building business. And they start shooting rockets into this area of the red area, which is Otef Gaza. These are the Yishuvim, which you've heard about over the last couple of days. Be'eri, Alumim, Nachal Oz, Kfar Azah. All these Yishuvim that were invaded on Shabbat. And they would send rockets there, which were a big pain in the neck, because people had 15 seconds from the time that they went ahead and shot the rocket to get to their safe place. If you're in the brown area, you have 30 seconds. And they sent in what was called the Tif-Tuf, a little drizzle of rockets, just to make life miserable. And Israel had to do something about it. Well, over the last number of years, so no less than 4 major Israeli incursions. 2008 Oferet Yitzukah, 2012 Amud Anan, 2014 Sukeitan, 2021 Shomer HaChamot. Each time Israel generally used the Air Force to bomb different places that were used for terrorist activities with the idea of Sheket Yavi Sheket, that if you stop doing what you're doing, we'll stop doing what we're doing. And then you see, well, the Sheket lasted for 4 years, lasted for 2 years, lasted for 7 years, but on and on and on, Hamas kept on shooting these rockets. As recently as last week, I read in the paper over Sukkot that the Hamas is not interested in really upping the ante and doing anything really bad to us, because they are more interested in making sure the economy of Gaza is healthy. And there were no less than 18,000 people from Gaza who had permits to come to Israel every single day and to work and to earn good salaries and to earn good money and to bring it back to Gaza. We know now, Shabbos morning, we now know that that was not their plan at all, and that they had something very, very much more sinister. And we all read and saw and know about the absolute atrocities that took place here on Shabbat and Sunday. But now it's important to know, okay, we have been hurt. It has been hard here. But ladies and gentlemen, we are going to win, with the emphasis on the we. It's not just the Chayalim, they're important, but it's also we, it's every single Jewish person, whether you're here in Eretz Yisrael or whether you're sitting in Riverdale. Why are we going to win? We're going to win it because of this Chayal. This Chayal who was called up on Shabbat. The only problem was on Sunday he had the Brit Milah of his son. So this is what happened.
Amen. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו לכל העם אשר קדושון במצוותיו וציוונו לכנסו בביתו של אברהם אבינו. אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו לכל העם שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. אמן. שם שנכנס לברית, כן ייכנס לתורה, לחופה ולמעשים טובים. אמן.
וקדש שמו בישראל, שמואל לב בן דוד.
יש פה בישראל.
ישראל, שבועי לב, איזה שם יפה. מזל טוב. לך בדמייך חיי, ואומר לך בדמייך חיי. יהיה לנו, ולכל ישראל.
This is why we're going to win, because Hamas is killing babies. We bring babies, we bring them Brito Shel Avraham Avinu. And we continue a grand tradition of being Gomlei Chesed, Rachmanim B'nei Rachmanim. That's why we're going to win this war. There were a couple in our neighborhood that was supposed to get married on Monday night. They did get married Monday night. But on Shabbos night, right after the war broke out, they got a call from the catering hall saying, sorry, we can't have your wedding because our cooks were called up, our waiters were called up. We can't possibly have a wedding over here. No problem. People in the community, somebody made chicken, somebody made rice, somebody made mushrooms, somebody did the salads, whatever it was. By Monday night, you had a whole wedding taking place in the shul here, Har Chorev, up the block from here. Beautifully set tables in order that this couple should be able to get married. There was another fellow supposed to get married Monday night, but he was called up. No problem. Collar comes down. That's why we're going to win. Hamas destroys, we build. That's why we're going to win. We're going to win because of Chayalei Tzahal and the Emunah HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
אם הם לא מתחילים להעט, אז תביאו אותם עכשיו.
זה לא אירע, מי לא מפחד, את האמונה לאבד, ולנו יש את מלך העולם, והוא שומר אותנו מכולם, מי שמאמין לא מפחד, את האמונה לאבד, ולנו יש את מלך העולם, והוא שומר אותנו מכולם.
But it's not just the Chayalim, but it's very, very much each and every person here. No one cares, religious, not religious. It doesn't make a difference anymore. It really doesn't. Everybody, these are people who are showering the Chayalim as they're going down to the front on Sunday with every possible thing that they could need, and every drink and every snack and everything else, just to show them that we give them our full support. Okay, look at that sign that girl is hanging up. Biyachad Natseach. It's everybody together. And when I mean everybody, I mean you too. You have to do your part, and you are doing your part. Number one, through tefillah. Every tefillah counts. Number two, tzedakah to the right organizations. Your teachers, your rabbanim will guide you where your tzedakah has to go to. Number three, I told Lisa the story. I'm going to share it with you. Did you guys write letters to Chayalim? Does this class write letters? Anybody here write letters to Chayalim? But apparently some SAR high school kids wrote letters to Chayalim. Now, sometimes you write letters, you think, who gets it? Where does it go? Does it go to the garbage can? Does anybody care about it? This happened with SAR high school letters. Apparently, I don't know what class wrote them, and they emailed them to somebody, a grad, who's learning in Gush Etzion this year. He gets them to no more Chayalim in Gush Etzion. They're all at the front. He doesn't know what to do with the letters. So he gives them to one of the Rabbanim, Jacob Bernstein, who's there. And he has these letters. Who am I going to give them to? My son, my youngest son, happens to live downstairs from Jacob Bernstein. My youngest son is in Miluim. He's in the reserves as an officer in the Air Force intelligence, in the Air Force, Israeli Air Force intelligence. He works out of the Kiryat, out of the main army center in Tel Aviv, way under the ground. That's where he's doing his work. So Jacob Bernstein gives my son the letters. My son takes them, and my son grew up in America through 5th grade. He was an SAR. He says, okay, I'll bring them. He starts giving them out. This is to the intelligence of the military, of the Air Force military of Israel, the Central Command. He gives out letters from SAR high school. And he said he couldn't believe everybody started to beam. Everybody started to smile. They felt so good that there are kids in New York that care about them. Kids in New York that ask them how they're doing, that were for you, everything else. They took those letters, they decorated their coffee room with the letters. They hung them all over the wall of the little peanut cafe. That's where the letters, I don't know which class it's from. That's where those letters are right now. I would take a picture, except you're not allowed to use cameras in that particular military installation. So the answer very, very much is what you do makes a very, very, very big difference. We're in for tough times now. And you're going to because there's going to be a lot of pressure in the United States, because Israel's going to go into Gaza, and there's going to be some ugly scenes, because there are going to be people killed. There are going to be babies killed. There are going to be innocent people killed, not on purpose, but that's what happens in war. Hamas brought it upon themselves. Nobody wants to do that. And then there's going to be tremendous pressure. Look at the Jews. Look what they're doing. The murderers, the baby murderers, everything else. You have to spring into action. You have to be at every single rally. You have to be on your chats and websites or whatever you guys do, chatting for Israel. You are in the front lines. It's biyachad ninatzeach. It's everybody working together, every Jew throughout the world working together, so this sign becomes true. Biyachad ninatzeach. So the song that you heard in the background is Ein Li Eretz Acheret. This is it, guys. This is the only country we have, and we're going to defend it. It's been hard here. I've been lied to you if I said otherwise. It's been difficult here. But Ein Lanu Eretz Acheret, and we are very, very much going to win if we biyachad very, very much. Biyachad ninatzeach. We're just going to finish here. Let's skip a couple of things because it's late. We've been Shaber Chayei Tzahal, and then I'll open up to some questions.
מי שברא חרבותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב הוא יברך את חיילי צבא ההגנה לישראל
Mishaberach Avotenu, Avraham Yisaf Yaakov. Hu yivarech et chayalei tzva hagana Yisrael v'chochot habitachon, hamdim amishmar etzenu v'arei Eloheinu, min halvanon v'amidbar Mitzrayim, yod hagadol halava harava, b'yabasha ba'avir uvayam uv'chol makom shehem. Yitein Adonai tovenu hakamim aleinu nikafim l'ftehem. Hakadosh Baruch Hu yishmor v'yatzil chayaleinu mikol tzara v'tzukah u'mikol nega machala. Yishlach bracha v'atzlacha b'chol ma'aseh yedeihem. Yaber sonenu tzachtehem v'yatzreim v'chetzer Yeshua v'ater nitzachon. V'kehem mehem b'katuv. Ki Adonai Elohechem holech imachem l'ilachem lachem u'mayvechem l'oshia etchem v'nomar amen. At this point, I'd love to open up the floor to any questions